Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm Sarah Stewart, the minister here. It's wonderful to have all of you with us this morning. I'm leading worship this morning with our interim director of music, Allegra Martin, our director of faith development, Samantha Namath, assistant director of faith development, Abigail Hannaford-Riccardi, assistant director of music, James Haupt, and Olivia Buxton, our broadcast tech. Ken Mandiel is our head usher this morning. Here at First Unitarian Church, we strive in loving fellowship to honor the sacred, connect with each other, and serve justice. We are a welcoming congregation. Whatever your age, race, class, nationality, sexual orientation, or gender identity, we are delighted to have you with us as part of our community. For those of you who are joining us online, you can like this video to help others find us and subscribe to our channel to find more content. The newsletter is the best way to stay in touch and join our other programs. If you would like to receive our e-newsletter, please go to firstunitarian.com and click subscribe to our newsletter at the bottom of any page. Everyone is welcome to come to a social hour in the church parlor after the service. If you're new here, I invite you to stop by the welcome table just through this door. There's another way to sign up for our newsletter there, plus meet some friendly people who will help you know more about the church. I have a few additional announcements this morning. For those of you who have name tags, if you're members or if you've been coming for a few weeks and you have a name tag, please do wear it. It helps everybody to know who we are and facilitates conversation. If you don't have a name tag but would like one, that is another thing you can do at the welcome table. This coming Friday, our faith development program is sponsoring an all-ages activity, APS and YAPS, which I think is appetizers and conversation. Yes, right. This is for everybody. We'll have a movie for kids who would rather watch a movie than be part of a conversation, but this is an opportunity for people of all ages to get to know each other, to share a potluck meal, to enjoy some multi-generational community. We've had a lot of requests over the past year to bring more of that back into church life as we emerge from the pandemic. This is your first opportunity. So I hope we'll see everybody this Friday. What time? 5:30. At 5:30 in the dining room. And finally, we have an announcement from our stewardship team.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carrie West. And it's been my pleasure to, can you hear me okay? Yeah? No? Louder, all right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Carrie West. It's been my pleasure to serve on the Stewardship Committee this year with Marjorie Connolly, Seth Poppinchak, Mike Willender, under the leadership of Sarah Stewart, and then working with Jennifer Bowes and Lisa McWalters in our office, and also with the assistance of Abby Hannaford-Riccardi, who made this really lovely display here, because our theme this year is regathering as we continue to join together after the pandemic. So we've had a lot of good participation so far, but we're looking for more. We've got about 80 people signed up to participate so far. We've got people signed up to host dinners and to be facilitators in our group discussions, and then signed up as dinner guests for potlucks. So it's really a nice opportunity, not just to talk about the stewardship of the church and what you can contribute financially, but also what the church gives to you. We'll have a testimonial later in the service to hear about how everyone gets different things out of the church. And so Abby has been adding some people, and with Sarah's assistance, to our display here to look at the different contributions that we've had so far. We've had about 32 pledges so far. We want to thank those people. We've raised about $93,335, which is a percentage of our total goal of $285,000. So we're looking about over 30%. So we would love to see some more of that. And then we will be set up in the room during coffee hour so that you can sign up for, we have 2 open dinners where we have spots on November 13th, Sunday, which is after church. That'll be a big group opportunity from 12:30 to 2:30. And then we have a Zoom opportunity for those people who aren't able to join in person from 7 to 9 on Monday night, November 14th. And more dinners are welcome to be added. I'll be hosting another dinner. A couple of our dinners had to be canceled because of lack of participation. The dates just didn't work. So I think other people will be adding dinners as well. I would love to have feedback about certain dates that would work better. I'm happy to host families with small children. That's always good. So we'll have our pledge cards at the dinners. We'll have them here in the coffee hour after service. And then in the next 1 to 2 weeks, we'll be mailing out pledge cards for those people who aren't able to participate in person. So if you have any questions, please check us out during the coffee hour. We look forward to seeing you. Thanks.
I am hosting the event on November 13th, so I would love to have as many of you as possible stay after church that Sunday for a potluck lunch and a conversation about what the church means for us. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. We seek to connect with each other across the barriers of political difference, and we bring our spiritual practices to this work. We seek common ground, acceptance, and love. We appreciate each other. We use civility. We love one another. We search for truth together. We look for shared commitments to kindness and dignity. We engage our shared humanity. We listen. We need our friends to recognize the shared humanity of all people. We understand the limits of personal relationships. We vote. In our personal relationships and in our political lives, may we know our values and build communities where we can live them out. Amen.
Emerson is going to light our chalice this morning.
In the love of peace, in the spirit of love,
we light this chalice. Please rise in body or spirit to renew our covenant by saying together the words in your order of service and appearing on your screen. In the love of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all. Please be seated.
Good morning. We have a couple of exciting things to share before we get started with the story today about faith development. Yesterday, we had an amazing Weogora Halloween school led by so many staff, but Abby and Mark. So it was a great turnout, so yay. No more hands. Today, we have our faith development classes, and we also have our mentor meeting from our coming of age youth, and I see a lot of you here. So we have no coming of age class, but I also want to always invite my youth who are in high school and up to come volunteer and be in the faith development classes. We would love you. That is part of your coming of age program, and it's always great to have you there. And without further ado, today's story is The Journey of the Birds, and Abby has a wonderful display for us. Once upon a time, all the birds in the land decided that they needed a leader. A leader, they thought, would make their community stronger. Representatives of all birds gathered to discuss finding a leader. The robin said, "A leader will tell us the right thing to do." The owl said, "Our leader must be wise." The hummingbird said, "A leader must believe we are each important, big and small." The swan had said, "I want a leader to be caring like a friend." The jay said, "Yes, the leader will help us share and get along together." "The leader must make us feel safe," said the hawk. "I know where you can find such a leader," said the red-crested hornbill. "It is a smorg that lives far from here." The birds were very excited. They said they were willing to go anywhere to find such a leader. "It might be dangerous," said the hornbill. And a few birds looked really troubled, but all the birds voted to go find the smorg. The hornbill took off, and all the birds followed. They flew at night. They flew in the sunshine. And days passed. Some birds got tired and they left the group. Other birds were filled with doubt. How did they know the smorg even really existed? Only the hornbill had ever heard of this bird. Some of the doubters dropped out. And some kept flying. One valley was filled with a fiery mountain, and all the birds were afraid. "I'm too small to make it over the mountain," lamented the hummingbird. "No, keep flying. We can make it together. We will help you." And they did. The strong flyers helped the weaker flyers. The birds with good vision helped find food for the group. Along the journey, the birds learned how to better respect, share, and care for each other. It seemed that every bird had something special and unique to offer that made the journey easier. Finally, as they are flying, the hornbill announced, "We are here." And the other birds looked around with anticipation. "Where's the smorg? We don't see it," they cried. "Come, it's over here," said the hornbill. And the birds stood around the hornbill and realized that they were on the edge of a lake. They looked in, and they all saw their own reflections. Then they understood. The smorg was not another bird. The smorg was all of them, and all of them were the smorg. They remember that each of them had something good and strong and special inside of them, and that each bird had its gifts to bring to their community. They were all that was needed to keep the community strong. They knew now together that they could do anything. Thank you. And I invite everyone to come to Faith Development. It is going to be a great day today. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Katya Yaukos forward to talk to us about why she loves First U and why her family supports us.
Good morning, everybody. I wrote a little something. I came to this church initially looking for solitude. I was a new mom, and we had recently moved to Worcester and were temporarily living with family. I needed a place to be in my thoughts and alone. My attendance to a church was a surprise to family members who many years before had rejected religious institutions. And to be honest, it was even a surprise to me. I mean, if I wanted solitude, I could have just gone to the Worcester Public Library. Over the years, I have reflected on what made me decide to attend a church. Yes, I needed solitude, but I truly think I was looking to be outside myself. When I first came here, I sat in the balcony with baby Aiden, who many of you know, and who's now 16 years old, and is still my baby. And the first thing that grasped me was the space. I have always loved big churches. I think it's because they force you to look up. And I have a tendency to just look right in front of me. This church is not ornate, but its perfectly organized details are calming to me. And often while I'm sitting here, I look up to enjoy the light and the details. The second thing that grasped me that first day I came here with sleeping baby Aiden in my arms was the choir. It absolutely brought me to tears. It moved me to be outside of myself. It was like floating in a cloud in a moment of peace, listening to the choir. Then came the sermon, and all the subsequent sermons, which serendipitously always applied to whatever I was living that week or had lived that week. And so I kept coming, eventually bringing my husband, and then my second baby, my second-born, Camila. My children and their development was a driving force for returning. Although as a humanist, I know we all have inherent morality, a church like this allows my children to grow alongside adults who believe that practicing our morality, giving back, and caring for others is important. And while I thought that what I needed when I first came here was solitude, what I found was much needed companionship, friendship, and a sense of community. I am here because no other place invites me to think deeply about the world and what I want this world to look like and what I want our children to bring to it. I challenge you to think about what First Unitarian brings to you, to give yourself and your contribution with that in mind, and to not forget to look up. Thank you.
I invite you to join in the common prayer printed in the insert in your order of service and appearing on your screen. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of our earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen. Please continue your own thoughts and prayers in silence. In this time of prayer and meditation, we share the joys and sorrows of our church with one another. Laura Melnick lights a candle for her father, who is having his kidney removed on Tuesday due to cancer. She will be there with him, praying that all goes well, and she asks us to join our prayers with hers. We know there are those joys and sorrows which go unspoken among us. And so we reach out to one another and even beyond these walls with compassion in our hearts as we say together the prayer of Jesus. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Our ministries at First Unitarian Church thrive because of your support. In the last week, we had a very successful We Agora Halloween Day yesterday, bringing together kids and teens from across the community to celebrate. Our choir is putting the finishing touches on next week's Music Sunday. And we launched our participation in a clothing drive for new Haitian refugees seeking emergency assistance in Worcester. The ushers will receive the morning's offering, or you may scan the QR code in the order of service. If you're online, you can text the number on your screen or go to firstunitarian.com and click Give Online at the top of any page. Everything we do as a church is thanks to your support. I invite your generous contributions for the good work of First Unitarian Church. Our first reading is the 122nd Psalm. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." Our feet are standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem, built as a city that is bound firmly together. To it the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, as was decreed for Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord. For there the thrones for judgment were set up, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you. Peace be within your walls and security within your towers. For the sake of my relatives and friends, I will say, peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your good. Our second reading is the poem Small Kindnesses by Danusha Lamaris. I've been thinking about the way, when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull in their legs to let you by. Or how strangers still say, "Bless you," when someone sneezes, a leftover from the bubonic plague. Don't die, we are saying. And sometimes, when you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else will help you pick them up. Mostly, we don't want to harm each other. We want to be handed our cup of coffee hot and to say thank you to the person handing it, to smile at them and for them to smile back, for the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of clam chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire. Only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together when we say, "Here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat." A crowd gathered in view of a busy thoroughfare. As people drove by on their way to work or family gatherings, the crowd displayed anti-Semitic signs. People raised their hands in the Nazi salute. They were emboldened by hateful messages from cultural icons and political leaders. Outraged citizens registered their opposition to the display, but everyone worried about the growing influence of racial, ethnic, and religious hatred in the country. So that could be a story from pre-war Germany, but that was Los Angeles last Saturday. In some ways, tolerance and pluralism have flourished in America in our lifetimes. In some ways, we have lived out the civility and kindness we heard in Danusha Lamaris' poem. But in other ways, those values of tolerance and kindness and peace and pluralism are under threat right now in our country. If you look at the statistics, our country is growing more diverse and more tolerant of that diversity. We've had increased immigration from all over the world in recent decades. Growing rights for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in our country in a movement that started in liberal communities, liberal religious communities in many cases, started in states and moved to the entire country. Women hold positions of leadership that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. White people will be a minority in America by 2045. Christians will be a minority in America by 2070. We are a diversifying country. But at the same time, the very system of democracy that makes this pluralism possible is under attack in a way that we could not have imagined when we fought World War II or stood against the Soviet Union. Then we fought for the right to vote, to build peaceful and free communities, the right to search for truth and to share information freely. Our liberal religious forebears fought also for racial justice, for the rights of women, for religious freedom, for LGBTQ acceptance, and we continue those struggles. Today, these freedoms and rights are under attack right here in America. Our country has long been an example, imperfect but viable, of pluralistic democracy. And today, both parts, both our pluralism and our democracy, are under attack. I have been exploring these ideas through the writings of the philosopher Hannah Arendt. She is a fascinating person. Arendt was born in East Prussia, which is now Germany, in a secular family in 1906. She didn't really know that she was Jewish or understand what that meant, but walking home from school one day, she was teased by a classmate for being Jewish. And when she came home and asked her mother what that meant, her mother said, "If one is attacked as a Jew, one must defend oneself as a Jew." A saying and attitude that stayed with Hannah for the rest of her life. After Hitler came to power in Germany, Hannah worked with Zionists to help publicize his anti-Jewish laws, and because of that work was briefly imprisoned by the secret police, then fled with her mother to Prague, and then to Paris. In Paris, she worked to help get Jewish children out of Europe. For that work, she was interned in Gurs, a camp in France, from which she escaped in a moment of confusion, on foot, alone, back to her mother. They finally got out of occupied France to Lisbon, and then to New York through subterfuge and daring. Some of her friends died trying to make the same journey. And once safe in New York City, she taught philosophy, and she wrote The Origins of Totalitarianism and the Human Condition, among other works. She documented what had allowed Hitler and Stalin to come to power in Europe and what communities could do to prevent that kind of tyranny in the future. She smoked like a chimney her whole life. She was married once and had several affairs. She died at age 69 after sitting down for a nap. She said, "To be alive and to think are the same thing." And she dedicated her life to that idea. Her work is a warning and an exploration into how tyrants organize the mob to enforce hatred. The Origins of Totalitarianism explores how totalitarianism could have been possible in Europe and what we can do to prevent it in the future. And The Human Condition is a deep dive into who we are as political animals and what we need for democracy. One of her key insights is that people need to cultivate the practice to participate in democracy. That it's not just something that comes naturally, that it begins in our private lives, in having time to ourselves and time to cultivate who we are in our families and in our communities. And then we exercise that power of being political animals in public with one another when we speak and act and work together. She believed that political life was possible because of our essential equality, and that pluralistic democracy requires us to act together for the common good. So I want to say a little bit about that private life piece. Democracy really begins with our private lives. Democracy is made up of citizens, and we must cultivate selves in order to be those citizens. I preached 2 weeks ago about how alienating social media is, how it divides us into groups and gets us to fight with each other and even makes a profit when we fight with each other. And I think of our private lives as what we do to cultivate our own souls, to stay out of the grasp of companies that would profit off of us, of tyrannies, of government, or of capitalism that are always trying to profit off of ourselves, and instead cultivate that private self, who we are when we are alone, who we are when we're with friends. We do this playing music together. We do this playing games together, going for runs, being here as part of our religious community. Developing this private life lets us know who we are, lets us know our own thoughts and values and commitments, lets us understand what we stand for, and helps us build loving connections with friends and family that sustain us in hard times. From that private life, we move into neighborhoods and people we know or could know to organize together with them. Out of this private life and the relationships we build emerges trust. And I would say that trust is one of the key elements for a functioning pluralistic democracy. When we say pluralism, that means we're not all the same, which of course we are not all the same. And those statistics I told you tell us that America is growing more and more diverse, where the differences that are among us become more and more visible to us. That's pluralism, that's a value in America, but it requires ever more trust that we can work together and know each other across those barriers of difference. Think about an example here in Worcester, which is ballot question 5, which you'll see on your ballots when you vote. Ballot question 5 would have the citizens of Worcester adopt the Community Preservation Act. It would help us tap into monies from the state, as well as contribute monies from in addition to our own property taxes here in Worcester, that would set aside money to help preserve, for historic preservation, green spaces, and affordable housing. The state of Massachusetts made this possible some years ago. The city council in Worcester has voted in favor of this, and now it has to be adopted by the citizens in order for it to become law in Worcester. And I think about how much this requires trust. If Worcester adopts this Community Preservation Act, then there will be a community board that helps decide how the money is spent. That means that the citizens of the city would have to have trust in that board, that it would be making good decisions, and that the process for getting onto that board would be transparent and open. That everybody would understand who had this power, how they were making the decisions, and what the parameters were that allowed them to decide. Personally, I'm voting yes on 5. In fact, I wrote an editorial in yesterday's Telegram and Gazette about questions 4 and 5. I speak only for myself here. But I think we can do it in Worcester. I think we can have that level of trust in one another to preserve a city that works for all of its citizens and believe in the process that would get us there. To protect our pluralism and democracy, we need to foster trust and organize for our values. We begin in our private lives and we move into community to create the world we want to live in. Once we've done that, once we're working together in our neighborhoods, in community organizations, we'll have 2 community organizations with us at coffee hour talking about some of these ballot initiatives. We have moved out of our private lives and into our lives as political people. We are organizing our power to make a change or maintain a status quo. We are acting politically. Arendt said that the potential for community power is created by living together, and that power only arises from the people living, speaking, and acting together. She wrote that the alternative to power is force and violence, which can be wielded by one person against many. She said one person alone can never have power. All they can have is force. So if I think about the insurrection, the attack on the Capitol from January 6th, a year and a half ago, that was not power, that was force. That was a tiny minority, 2,000 people, versus the hundreds of millions of people who live in America, seeking to exercise their will over the will of the majority by the use of force. What we have in our hands as citizens and ordinary people in America is power, but we don't have it alone. We only have it when we work together. Now, as religious liberals, we can be wary of power because we can be hyper aware of the potential abuses of power. We may have experienced abuse of power in our own lives. We are aware of the ways that some people can try to force others to do what they want. But Hannah Arendt would say that force is what tyrants use when they have no power, and power is what people create in organization to decide together what kind of world they want and work together to create it. Voting is power. Community organizations are power. Lawmaking is power. Protest and civil disobedience are power. We hold this power in our collective hands. Hannah Arendt said that the outstanding characteristic of tyranny was that it rested on isolation, the isolation of the subjects from each other through mutual fear and suspicion. When we are afraid of one another, we are subject to tyranny. We can't organize together for power. We cannot allow fear to isolate us and keep us from organizing the world that we want to live in, even fear of the power itself. We can't let social media companies and even the pandemic keep us alone and only with people who think like us. Fear of strangers isolates us. Even our neighborhoods can isolate us if our neighborhood is full of people who are like us, racially or religiously or socioeconomically. Now, you might expect me to say here that we must overcome political divisions and work together, that the answer here is for Democrats and Republicans to get along. And I did say 2 weeks ago that I believe in the power of productive conflict and connection between people. You might be like me, and you might have political divisions within your own family. There might be those topics that you just cannot talk about at Thanksgiving. I believe in the power of staying connected and curious in those loving relationships, even if it means having to stay away from certain topics or learning how to talk about those topics with mutual respect. I think that does help build connection and love in our own families and in our friendships. But I don't think that Democrats and Republicans learning to love each other is the answer to fighting back against tyranny. To fight force, we have to organize power. To fight back against tyranny, we need to protect the pluralism that is at the heart of the American dream. The tyranny at work in America is a tyranny of sameness, a sameness of white, Christian, male-dominated America. Power will be built in coalitions of difference. People of different races, different religions, different ethnicities and national origins, different gender expressions, different family structures. And it will make structural changes and protections to stand against tyranny. Power will show up as laws that protect the rights of women, trans folks, and LGBTQ people. It will show up in juries that hold police accountable for murderous brutality. It will show up in community groups that protect the natural environment. It will show up in organizations that help women get out-of-state abortions. Power will show up when communities insist that Jews and other religious minorities may worship in peace. It shows up when we vote, and it shows up when we organize for the world we want to see. A wise man said, "Justice is what love looks like in public." When we organize our power for justice, we live out our love in the world. I love you all. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 293 in your gray hymnals, O Star of Truth. I want to point out that this hymn by Mino Justin Savage was, that this man, Savage, was the father of Reverend Savage, who served our church. So we are lifting up the heritage of First Unitarian Church and singing our closing hymn. Please rise in body or spirit to sing. Go forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast that which is good. Render to no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the afflicted. Honor everyone. Love and serve the holy, rejoicing in the power of the Spirit forever. Amen. Please be seated.